All right, ready to dive into some serious Kenyan traffic knowledge.
I'm game if you are.
You sent us some intriguing legal documents, excerpts from the Traffic Act, CA PU 403 to be precise.
Oh, this is no ordinary rule book.
It really isn't. Let me tell you, we're talking regulations on everything.
Yeah.
Vehicle specs to passenger etiquette.
Even a few head scratchers thrown in for good measure.
Absolutely. This act goes way beyond your basic traffic laws.
It does. It gives a fascinating glimpse
It really does.
into how Kenya prioritizes order and safety on its roads.
And they do it in a very specific way.
Often very specific. Okay, so where do we want to start? This thing is massive.
Well, let's unpack this a bit. Anyone who's visited Kenya knows the Matatus.
Oh, yes.
These minibuses are like the lifeblood of public transport there.
Right.
And the Act has a lot to say about them.
It does. From licensing requirements for drivers and conductors to the placement of luggage. Can't be blocking those emergency exits. It's all in there. It's clear that Matatu operations are tightly regulated.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The Act lays out passenger rights,
Really?
particularly if your Matatu is running super late. Imagine this.
Okay.
Your bus is delayed, right?
Uh-huh.
4 hours.
Oof.
Due to a breakdown.
Oh, no.
Turns out you're entitled to a partial refund.
Wow. That's cool.
It really is.
I mean, breakdowns happen, but still.
It's one of those details that reveals a real focus on consumer protection within the public transport system.
I like that.
It speaks volumes. These vehicles are important to everyday Kenyan life, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, they're essential.
And speaking of Matatu life, passenger etiquette gets its own section in the Act.
No way. Get out of here.
I'm serious. We're talking detailed rules about things like spitting or not spitting.
I mean, spitting on a bus. Pretty gross.
It highlights the emphasis on maintaining order and respect within these shared spaces. I mean, let's be real. These vehicles are often packed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely jam-packed. So having clear guidelines, well, I think it's essential.
It's all about keeping things flowing smoothly, literally and figuratively.
Exactly.
Now, beyond the bustling world of Matatus,
Yeah.
the Act also dives deep into regulations
It does.
for other vehicles,
Okay.
especially when it comes to safety features.
I'd imagine that's pretty important.
This is where they have a rule for that.
Yeah.
Permits start popping up.
Oh, really? Like what?
For instance, there are precise guidelines for those reflective triangles. You know, the ones...
Oh, yeah. You see those on larger vehicles?
Exactly. Specific dimensions,
Mm-hmm.
materials.
No.
Wait, even the angle at which they need to be mounted.
Seriously. They have a rule for the angle. That's wild.
I know. It paints quite a vivid picture. You're driving down a Kenyan road at night, and it's like these trucks are constellations.
They can just picture it.
On wheels, with all those reflectors. Definitely catches the eye.
And then that's the point, right?
It is.
Maximum visibility on the road.
Yep.
Especially considering, well, the potential hazards of driving at night.
It's a small detail. Reveals a much larger concern for safety.
Yeah, I see that.
But those specific regulations, those aren't just limited to safety features.
Okay.
So if you're thinking about cruising around in a car with personalized plates, listen up.
All right, I'm listening.
This Act
Yeah.
has something to say about that too.
No kidding.
It outlines specific size requirements for those personalized plates, and get this.
What's that?
Using unauthorized plates
Yeah.
could land you in some serious trouble.
Oh, wow.
Talk about high stakes for a little bit of customization.
Yeah, you could say that again. I mean, who knew?
It goes to show even seemingly minor details, those are taken seriously when it comes to vehicle regulation in Kenya.
It makes you wonder what else is in there.
I know.
It's about maintaining order and ensuring accountability. Every detail, from those reflectors
Right.
to those personalized plates, they play a part in that larger system.
They really do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might be thinking all this talk about personalized plates and reflectors, that's all well and good, but what about the actual driving?
Right.
Well, don't worry.
Of course, of course.
The Act has plenty to say about that, too.
It does, yeah.
Especially when it comes to speed limits.
Speed limits, yeah. That's right. And it's not just a blanket statement either.
Oh, no, not at all.
This act gets specific, outlines different speed limits based on, the type of road and vehicle.
They really do. So for those cruising down those smooth, beautiful dual carriageways,
Yeah.
what's the magic number?
All right. So for cars on those dual carriageways, you're looking at a limit of 110 kilometers per hour.
Okay.
But for other vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
particularly those carrying heavier loads, 80 kilometers per hour
Makes sense.
on any road.
Right.
These distinctions.
Mm-hmm.
Those highlight a focus on managing that diverse traffic flow, the kind you're likely to encounter on Kenyan roads.
It's like they've thought of everything.
Well, they try to.
And speaking of thinking of everything, we can't forget about our pedestrians.
Absolutely not. Those are important people, too. You can't just be focused on those behind the wheel.
Very true.
No, the Act has clear guidelines for pedestrians as well, particularly when it comes to, well, navigating those intersections.
Oh, yeah. This can be a bit chaotic.
Especially at roundabouts.
So what's the lowdown on staying safe as a pedestrian in Kenya?
Well, the Act really emphasizes using those pedestrian crossings correctly and outlines, just safe practices for crossing roads in general,
Good to go.
given, that mix of vehicles you see and the occasional muscling traffic. These guidelines, they're crucial to keep everyone safe.
Because even if you're following all the rules in your car, you can't always predict what a pedestrian might do.
Especially in a crowded area. You just never know.
Right, exactly. And speaking of things you shouldn't do in a car, let's not forget the obvious.
Yeah.
Driving under the influence.
Definitely a no-go.
That's a definite no-go. It's good to know the Act is crystal clear on that, with serious consequences for those who choose to disregard this fundamental safety rule.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's zero tolerance when it comes to that.
Rightfully so.
But on a later note,
Okay.
did you know the Act even delves into, fuel regulation?
Fuel regulation.
Yeah.
That's surprisingly specific.
A little bit, yeah.
What's the deal with that?
Well, it's not just about using the correct fuel for your engine, right?
Okay.
The Act outlines rules for transporting fuel as well, specifying things like, the type of containers allowed. Imagine trying to haul a massive jerry can of gasoline
Oh, no.
in your trunk.
Probably not a good idea.
Probably not a good idea, according to these regulations. I would say not.
Definitely good to know, especially before you go on a road trip.
Yeah, I think so. You don't want to get caught with that.
And while we're on the topic of things that could get you in trouble, the Act is also quite clear about driver accountability.
Accountability, yeah.
For instance, drivers, they're required to provide their name and address
Right. Makes sense.
if requested by a police officer.
Of course. It's all part of that overarching theme we've been discussing, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Maintaining order, ensuring responsibility on the road.
And this emphasis on accountability.
Yeah.
That isn't just limited to individual drivers.
Oh.
No. The Act also mandates that companies keep records
Oh, interesting.
of the drivers they employ, emphasizing that shared responsibility of, putting vehicles on the road.
Right.
Not just the driver, but the company, too.
A comprehensive approach for sure. So from personalized plates to fuel containers, it seems like the Kenyan Traffic Act really has all the bases covered.
They really do try to think of everything.
But for our listener who's been patiently absorbing all of this information,
Yeah.
what's the key takeaway here?
I think after this deep dive, our listener, they're armed. They're armed with a wealth of knowledge about the rules of the Canyon Road, both, the everyday essentials
Sure.
and those surprisingly specific regulations. That might catch you off guard.
Exactly. And while some of these rules, they might seem a bit quirky at first glance,
And they do.
they often reveal a deeper understanding
They do, yeah.
of the unique challenges and cultural nuances of driving in Kenya.
Absolutely. And let's not forget,
Yes.
this isn't just about avoiding a ticket, right?
Right.
Understanding these rules, it's crucial for ensuring, everyone's safety, whether you're, behind the wheel,
Yeah.
riding in a Matatu,
Right.
or navigating, just a busy intersection on foot.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up, there's one more detail tucked away in this act that we need to address. The demerit point system.
Ah, yes, that's right, the demerit points.
Now, the act, it mentions accumulating points for certain driving violations, which can have serious implications for your driving record.
It can, yeah.
So tell me more about this demerit system. How does it work?
Well, the Act, it provides a glimpse. It outlines a table of offenses and, their corresponding point values.
Okay.
So, for instance, overtaking dangerously.
Yeah.
That'll cost you
How many points is that?
6 points.
6 points. That's quite a penalty for a single violation. It really raises the stakes, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. Yeah, it's not something to take lightly. And to add another layer to this, the Act designates the officer commanding police division
Okay.
as the point person
Yeah.
for handling, traffic matters.
So it's not just about individual officers issuing tickets.
No, not at all.
There's a, what, like a centralized system?
Exactly. There's a system for managing these violations, ensuring, a consistent enforcement across the board.
Okay, so what does this tell us about the overall approach to road safety in Kenya then?
Well, I think it suggests a real commitment to a standardized and transparent system. The officer commanding police division, he plays a key role, upholding the law, ensuring accountability across all the different regions.
Sure.
This centralized approach, it helps to minimize those discrepancies, I think, and it helps promote a unified understanding
Right.
of the rules of the road.
It's a fascinating insight into the structure and the enforcement of traffic laws in Kenya. But for the everyday driver,
Yeah.
what does this emphasis on a demerit points system, what does it really mean?
It means you're driving with a target on your back, so to speak.
Okay, I like that.
Each violation, from speeding to those dangerous overtaking maneuvers, it carries weight beyond the immediate fine.
Right. It's not just about the here and now.
Exactly. You're building a driving record.
You are.
That reflects your commitment to safety over time.
It adds a whole new dimension to that idea of driving with a license to lose, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. It does, yeah.
You're not just following rules to avoid a ticket in the moment.
Right.
You're building a driving record. That reflects your commitment to safety over time.
That's exactly it. And that's something, well, that's definitely worth considering, especially if you're planning to spend, an extended period driving on Kenyan roads.
Right. Because it's not a one-and-done situation.
No, not at all. It's about the long game.
It's a sobering thought.
It is, yeah.
But an important one nonetheless. But before we send our listener off with a sense of trepidation,
Sure, yeah.
let's reiterate the ultimate goal of all these rules and regulations.
Absolutely. It's about fostering a culture of safety and responsibility out there on the road.
It's about protecting not just yourself, but also your passengers and those sharing the road with you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's a goal we can all get behind.
It's about understanding that driving, it isn't just a right, it's a responsibility.
Well said. And that brings us back to that intriguing detail we touched upon it earlier.
The international driving permits?
Yes, the international driving permits.
Yes.
Mentioned in the Act.
Yes, it piqued my curiosity as well. Seems like the perfect final thread to pull.
It does, doesn't it, in this deep dive?
It really does.
Makes you wonder.
It does. What are the specific rules for using an international driving permit in Kenya? How long is it valid?
Right.
Are there restrictions on the types of vehicles you can drive?
It's definitely something worth, investigating further, especially for, anyone planning a longer road trip.
Yeah.
Or, if you're unfamiliar with the nuances of Kenyan driving regulations.
It highlights the fact that even with all this knowledge that we've gained from this deep dive, there's always more to explore.
Always more to learn.
The world of traffic laws, it's surprisingly vast and constantly evolving.
It really is.
But hey,
what's that?
That's part of what makes these deep dives so much fun.
It's true. It keeps things interesting. Uncovering these little details.
Exactly.
Been a fascinating journey, really. Unpacking this Kenyan Traffic Act. From those eye-catching reflectors.
Right.
To the intricacies of that demerit point system.
We've uncovered those, they have a rule for that, moments.
We really have.
But also, I think we've gained a deeper appreciation for the thought and intention behind all these regulations.
Because it would be easy to just, brush them aside.
Right.
As, they're just, quirky rules. But there's a reason.
There is.
Behind all of them.
It's a reminder that, whether those rules involve personalized plates, passenger etiquette, they all contribute to a larger goal.
They do.
Of safety and order on the road.
Exactly.
And ultimately, that's something we can all appreciate. Whether we're behind the wheel, riding in a Matatu.
Right.
Or navigating those busy Kenyan streets on foot.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So as you venture out onto those Kenyan roads, armed with all this newfound knowledge,
be careful out there.
Remember to drive safe, stay curious.
Always be curious.
And maybe keep a copy of that Traffic Act handy.
Just in case.
Just in case.